Bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs.
Bows and TKOs. We are live, episode 115, coming at you from the valley on this beautiful Wednesday afternoon. It's freaking hot out here. I'm ready for the heat to go away. Hopefully cooler days are in the near future. But I'm your host, Shane Gillette, for this weekly MMA podcast, streaming anywhere you get your podcasts, videos on YouTube, of course. And we got a good show as we're back into some swing of MMA. A couple fights that have been announced. We will recap yesterday's Dana White Contender Series episode. Talk about the Canelo-Crawford bout, a big boxing fight. Really the first time I'm breaking a boxing fight down, but that's how excited I am. Recapping UFC Paris, and then previewing this week's UFC Noche card. So let's jump right into the action. A couple fights that we have not announced. We have Daria Zelkenikova taking on Luana Santos November 8th. Then we have Felipe Lima and Daniel Marcos November 22nd. Yesterday's Dana White Contender Series was another doozy, some nice knockouts, but it started in the women's strawweight, starting the night off hot in a bloody scrap where Carol Photo had a unanimous decision over Chanel Dyer. Photo had Dyer split open, a nice cut above the eye, had her on wobbly legs early, and looked like we were due for a first-round finish. But somehow Dyer was able to survive, and then the rest of the fight, she really did outland Faro via volume. But Faro, with about 2 minutes in each round, just bit down on her mouthpiece, turned that aggressive switch on, and unleashed nasty hooks over and over, and they landed with serious power as she took the decision. And both women getting a UFC contract. Dana White appreciated the grit from Chanel Dyer. She obviously showcased some of that Muay Thai skill set and just the ability to keep fighting, look for a finish herself after almost being finished in the first round. Then in the lightweight division, we had a young 22-year-old Samuel Sanchez with a quick round one knockout over Chasen Blair. He had Blair up against the cage and had a beautiful body up, down low, up high combination. They got the finish, and he gets a UFC contract. An interesting prospect at the lightweight division to keep an eye on. Then moving into the light heavyweight, an interesting fight here as we had Freddie Vidal defeating Felipe Francie by rear naked choke in round 3. This was a short notice bout with about a week. Vidal did weigh in 4 pounds over the limit, but he pleaded his case as he is a PE teacher, and the day he got the call for the fight, he was actually going to school for day 1. But turned around, brought the fight, hanging there for 15 minutes. I still don't know how, but somehow got a rear naked choke finish. You know, both men very inexperienced as pro fighters. They haven't faced a lot of competition. Dana White said, I let you plead your case. I did not like the fight, but we will put you in the last week of the Contender Series this season for another shot. Then in the featherweight, we had Larian Douglas with a beautiful round one knockout over Cam Teague. This is Cam Teague's second Dana White Contender Series stint. I don't expect we'll see much more of him, but Larian Douglas got a UFC contract. And then in the main event, we had 2 heavyweights, rockin' socket boppers right out the get-go, as big boy Steven Asplin got a round 1 TKO over Anthony Garcia. And Steven took this fight with about 2 weeks' notice, as he was actually scheduled to fight for the LFA. But Steven also earning a UFC contract, so 5 contracts again for the 4th consecutive week. But outside UFC, we have Noche early because Noche's headliner is the Canelo Alvarez Terence Crawford boxing fight. Now, per usual, I don't know a lot of other fighters here on the card. I do know Walsh because I believe he's still dating Tabitha Ricci. But a good young Irish boxer, I do believe is the co-main event. Canelo full boxing card. Let's see who he's fighting. And he's fighting a Mexican fighter that has some potential as well. Callum Walsh and Fernando Vargas Jr. But the main event is expected to be about 8 to 8:30 p.m. Pacific on Netflix. There is a full card, but again, I don't know anybody else, so I'm not going to act like I do. Typical world of boxing. So to preempt this fight, I mean, we are getting the golden age of boxing right now because of one man and one man only. Turki Alashik has changed the game. He has paid for the best fighters to square off. And in this bout, they're getting a little UFC action as if you don't know, Dana White is co-promoting and they have a bonus for a finish. But the big story is that Crawford is about to turn 38 years old. And Canelo is a couple weight classes bigger. As Terrence has been fighting mostly from the 140 to 150 pound weight classes. He is 41-0. He has some namely wins over the likes of Earl Spence Jr., Sean Porter, and Joseph Benavidez Jr. But what I love about Terrence is it's all been by TKO or knockout. He's only gone to a decision once in his last 10 fights. He is a very quick, powerful boxer, and he fights a lot differently than the guys that Canelo has been dealing with. But again, he's moving up to fight Canelo in his prime. That's a tall task. You know, Canelo's recently 35 years old. He has been fighting around the 165 to 175. So I would say Terrence is a natural 140-pounder, Canelo a natural 165-pounder. So that's like a kind of a featherweight fighter going up and fighting a welterweight fighter. But hey, you know, Canelo's challenged himself. He's moved up as well. He couldn't get it done at light heavyweight back in May of 22 against a very good Dimitri Bivol, who has done well since that fight as well. But besides that, Canelo's only loss was against Floyd Mayweather Jr. back in 2013. He was very young for that fight. Floyd had a huge advantage, and that's why Floyd picked the timing, was to take on Canelo before he became an absolute problem, which he has. And Canelo, he has wins over Jermell Charlo, Gennady Golovkin 2 times, Caleb Plant, Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., Miguel Cotto, and Shane Mosley. Now, when we look at the fight, again, Terrence is slick, he's quick, he has power in his hands, but he is the undersized fighter. I do expect him early to be moving too much for Canelo. Canelo has very good defensive boxing. I think he learned a lot from Floyd Mayweather Jr. I think we'll see a lot of defensive boxing early, attacking the shoulders from Canelo to wear out the smaller, quicker Terrence Crawford, and then he'll start pouring it on the second half of the fight to either win via decision. But I do hope we do have some chances to be in, that are taken by both men as they look to get that finish bonus. But the way I see it happening, Canelo is too defensively sound. He is too powerful. I don't think Terrence is going to be able to take the power shots from Canelo because he's not faced a guy with that stature and power. And I don't think Crawford's power is going to be enough to get Canelo out. I could see a way where Terrence puts out enough volume, moves fast enough to win on the scorecards, but I'm not betting on that. I think we see a Canelo decision, but like I said, I hope we do see some risks taken to see a finish. But I am absolutely excited for this. Dana White has had the embedded crew following Canelo and Terrence around this week. I mean, this is one of the biggest boxing fights that boxing could put on. And I just love to see that we're getting the benefits here. And Dana has announced that he is going to do basically a breeder ground for boxing. It's like a contender series for boxing show where the winners go on and Turkey puts them in big name fights. So a lot of changes coming to boxing. It all starts this Saturday on Netflix. I am absolutely fucking hyped for this boxing bout. I mean, Terrence is a dog from the scums of Omaha, Nebraska. Canelo from Mexico. It's as good as it gets. 2 guys that deserve the world, and they have a massive moment ahead of them. But let's talk about what happened last weekend in Paris. I went 9-4 on my picks. So overall, I'm 704 wins, 349 losses, 9 no contests and draws. On the year, 220 wins, 108 losses, 2 no contests or draws. I have more than doubled up the loss column. That's as much as you could ask for. But to recap the card, I mean, you wouldn't even know that the Pitbull fight was scrapped. The prelims started the night off right, or the morning off right for us here in the States. 7 consecutive finishes, some very fun moments. But for me, it's all about the Paris crowd. They're there from the beginning of the prelims, completely sold out arena. They're screaming, they're doing their chants, they're booing the opponents. I mean, the atmosphere there for the entire card and the main card, I don't think there's any place else that the UFC has gone to that has a better crowd. And I'm almost convinced I need to go there one day to go watch a UFC event. But then in the main card, not only did we have more moments and some good scraps, but the French fighters looked amazing to close out the night. The French fighters were 5-0 on the night. I am recapping this a 7 out of 10, and I previewed this a 7 out of 10 before the Pitbull fight was scrapped and Fares Ziam had to pull out. Some good fights we did not talk about. There's quite a few of them. Sam Hughes kicked off the night with a round 2 submission via rear naked choke over Shauna Bannon. That'll probably be the end of Shauna in the UFC. We had Sam Patterson with a beautiful round 1 TKO over Trey Waters. Caio Hernandez with a round 1 TKO over Harry Hardwick. Harry Hardwick's a guy who shot his shot on the microphone at a UFC press conference saying, hey, you need to sign me, give me a chance. He's a Cage Warriors champion. He got a chance and learned that you got to learn how to protect your legs because Caio Hernandez turned his legs into chop suey. This really was a leg kick TKO. But performance of the night, 50 Gs for Caio Hernandez. And then we had Umar C with a round 1 TKO over Bredson Hiberio. William Gomez with the unanimous decision over Robert Ruchala, which Robert had grappled and controlled a lot of the fight but didn't do enough damage. And William landed just enough strikes to steal the decision. And then we had Axel Solo with a round 3 TKO over Reese McKee. That was one of the fights that I got wrong. But let's kick this off. In the prelims, we had Rinat Fakhretdinov with a round 1 knockout over Andreas Gustafsson. And I expected an all-out bloody banger in this fight for the fans, but Rinat had other ideas. He clearly had a game plan to take advantage of the forward pressure and aggression from Gustafsson as he timed a brilliant shot that sat Andreas right down, and it only took him a few follow-up ground and pound shots to get the finish. And statistically, it only took Rinat 23 total and significant. Andreas landed 5 total and significant. But now Rinat extends that winning streak to 23. He does have a draw in there. So he is 6-0-1 in the UFC. Again, I would like to see him be more active. He shouldn't fight once a year or maybe twice a year, especially with quick finishes like that. He's almost 34 years old. Hopefully turns around quickly. And then Andreas ends his 4-fight winning streak and he starts a new losing streak. He is 2-1 in the UFC. So what's next? How about Jeff Neal, Rinat Fakhretdinov? That would be a fun scrap. And for Andreas, he could take on Chris Curtis. Moving on, another fight I got wrong. We had Robert Bryczek with a round 3 TKO over Brad Tavares. And in this fight, Robert was just able to pressure Brad, get him circling up against the cage for majority of the fight. I actually expected Brad to be the one to bring the pressure, mix in takedowns, but when he did shoot for takedowns, they were not in very ideal situations, and he didn't have much luck, but he really didn't sell out for the takedowns either. He kind of gave up on them. And when the fight was standing, Robert had much faster hands. He was swinging away with serious intent the entire fight, and when he would get Brad cut off against the cage, after he got a knockdown in the first round, somehow Brad was able to survive, got on the leg, probably like 2 minutes, was able to survive to round 2. The second round was definitely a slow and measured round, as both men were pretty exhausted from the output in round 1. But Brad actually landed more volume to win the round, which I had it going 1-1 into a winner-takes-all third round. But round 2, you could tell Robert was kind of preserving his energy because he cut the cage off for Brad again. And when he did, he had Brad covering up because he had nasty body shots, nice head shots, and he got the TKO finish. Massive win for Robert Bryczek. Very tough loss for the veteran Brad Tavares. Statistically, Brad landed 50 total strikes, 42 of them significant with the takedown. He was 1 for 3 in takedowns and had 1 minute and 22 seconds of control time. And Robert landed 77 total strikes, 68 of them significant, a takedown, and 1 minute and 22 seconds of control time as well. So Robert starts a new winning streak. He moves to 1-1 in the UFC. Brad starts another losing streak. He is 2-4 since 2023. What's next? I would love to see Robert square up with Michel Pereira. And for Brad, how about a fellow veteran in Rodolfo Vieira? Then in the prelim headliner, what a moment this was. Another fight I got wrong. We got Ante Delija with a round 1 TKO over Marcin Tybura. Performance of the night. Welcome to the UFC, Ante Delija. And it was just an awesome performance. I mean, a great story. A guy who's been training MMA since day one, has had to live his life in the other promotions, finally got to make his UFC debut in his mid-30s, and he just stalked Marcin down. He reversed him in a clinch situation, and once he created separation, let his hands fly. He clearly was a much faster and more powerful striker than Marcin. And Marcin actually looked like he didn't even belong in the octagon, which was shocking to me. But Delija, you could tell his work training with Tom Aspinall has paid off. Now he's going to be in the heavyweight rankings and be a problem for the heavyweight division. Statistically, Marcin landed 8 total strikes, 4 of them significant, with 1 minute and 18 seconds of control time. And Ante landed 15 total strikes, 13 of them significant with the knockdown. But Ante extends his winning streak to 2. He is 3-1 since 2023, winning his much anticipated UFC debut. And Ante actually enters the rankings at number 9, so he's in the top 10. Marcin ends his 2-fight winning streak and starts a new losing streak. He's 4-3 since 2023 and drops 3 spots in the rankings to number 10. So now we got some new blood in the heavyweight division that could use it. What's the fight to make? Well, I think you make Derek Lewis and Ante Delija. That's a certified banger. And for Marcin, how about Shamil Gaziev? Moving into the main card. Whoo-wee, was this a absolute fucking war. We had Mason Jones with a round 2 TKO over Bolaji Oki. Performance of the night, 50 G's for Mason. And I had a feeling this would be the tale of 2 rounds, have fight of the night potential, and that's exactly what we witnessed. Bolaji came out very aggressive and explosive as we expected, but Mason was game. He hung in there. He got beaten down quite a bit, but he did get a takedown after being rocked and knocked down early in round 1, and even got a knockdown of his own. But Bolaji took the first round and had Mason's face all messed up. It was kind of a surprise that Mason was able to get out of there. But round 2, Oki definitely had slowed down after the output and power that he expended, and Mason took advantage. He was aggressive, he got another takedown, and was able to get Oki out of there with some nasty ground and pound, a massive comeback victory, and a huge stock boost for Mason Jones. Oki, still young, ton of potential. Another fight he's going to have to learn. He needs to learn how to expend himself over the course of 15 minutes. Statistically, Bolaji landed 40 total strikes, 38 of them significant. He was 0 for 1 in takedown attempts with the knockdown. And Mason landed 67 total strikes, 57 of them significant. He had 2 takedowns, a submission attempt, a knockdown, and 3 minutes and 41 seconds of control time. So Mason extends his winning streak to 6. He's 2-0 in his second stint with the UFC. Oki starts a new losing streak and moves to 3-2 since 2023, all in the UFC. So what's next? Well, I mean, for Mason, he could take another man on who had a very impressive win in Paris. I would love to see Mason and Caio Hernandez square up. And for Oki, how about Nicholas Mota? That's also must-see TV. Moving on, we had Modestas Bukauskas with a round 1 TKO over Paul Craig. And this fight was just ugly as shit from Paul. I mean, I'm glad he's officially retiring. His body's broken down. He's not going to live long in the light heavyweight division. But Modestas and Paul at the beginning of the fight were kind of exchanging some good leg kicks. But then Modestas just marched forward, kind of with those sloppy wide hooks to get Paul up against the cage. And once they separated, Paul went for some high kicks, reclinched, and tried to get Modestas down. But he eventually tried to pull a flying triangle, pull guard situation. Modestas was able to slip through, rain down some nasty ground and pound, and with 1 second left, completely knocked the lights out of Paul. The bell had rung, but clearly it was a knockout finish. Tough way for Paul to go out. He was a fun fighter, lived and died by his sword, would take a shot to get a submission. All of the triangle chokes and fun moments that he had, the war paint, he was a character. He did belong. But Modestas now really boosting his stock and is on a very good trajectory. Statistically, Modestas landed 29 total strikes, 22 of them significant. He had 1 minute and 50 seconds of control time. And Paul landed 30 total strikes, 6 of them significant. He was 0 for 2 in takedowns with 45 seconds of control time. So Modestas extends his winning streak to 4. He's 6-1 since 2023. And another man training with Tom Aspinall clearly has benefited. But Paul ends his career on a 4-fight losing streak, had a no contest in there as well. And his last win was against Andre Muniz back in July of 2023. But he had some quality wins. He had wins over Nikita Krylov, Jamal Hill, Mauricio Rua, and Magomed Ankalaev, 3 former champions. A great career for the veteran. But what's next for Modestas? How about Modestas and Zhang Mingyang? Moving on to the co-main event. We had Benoit Saint-Denis with a round 2 submission via face crank over Mauricio Ruffy. Performance of the night, 50 Gs for the French assassin. And some interesting developments in this fight. I mean, Mauricio, as usual, very wide in his stance. He was faking a lot, but never really let his hands go, as he was waiting for BSD to come first. Well, BSD in the first round went straight to grappling, got an easy body lock takedown that only took him about 40 seconds in the fight to get. He was able to actually get in full mount, and Ruffy was just taking it. But after some good ground and pound, Ruffy was able to spin away when he was in full guard and get up to his feet. And Ruffy kept going with some high knees and high kicks, which BSD was able to transition that into another takedown. They battled up against the cage for a while, but BSD was really in total control and was wearing on Ruffy. Now Ruffy, he didn't have great grappling defense. He didn't seem prepared for grappling exchanges, but to credit to him, he did get back up to his feet after both takedowns. There was a weird incident where he complained about a groin shot, looked very borderline. Herb didn't see it, but he got Herb deemed to break the action, which gave him a moment for rest. But BSD, once the fight began, would recklessly throw shots to close distance, and Ruffy was waiting for his right, but BSD kept attacking the body, so his big overhand right couldn't come, and his hands never really never got to let his hands go. But round 2 again, BSD was all over Ruffy. Ruffy did land a nice flying knee at one moment, but BSD needed to keep up the action. You know, he couldn't just stay in the center of the octagon and wait and exchange, because Mauricio is more quick and technical. But the body kicks for BSD really helped avoid the offense of Mauricio. With about 3 minutes left, BSD got another takedown, was able to get in a body triangle, landed some nice ground and pound, and then just kind of ripped the face of Mauricio. It wasn't under the chin, but apparently a squeeze was enough for BSD to get the tap. Some people are saying this is a fraud check. I don't think Mauricio is a fraud by any means, but he is still young to the game and just shows how many holes he still has in his game before he makes a run at the top of a very uber-skilled lightweight division. But a massive win for BSD in his home territory. That will really help him fight back up in the rankings. Statistically, BSD landed 37 total strikes, 17 of them significant. He had 3 takedowns and 10 attempts, a submission attempt, and 4 minutes and 38 seconds of control time. Now, Ruffy landed 6 total strikes, 5 of them significant, with 34 seconds of control time. So BSD extends his winning streak to 2. He's 5-2 since 2023. He stays at number 13 in the rankings. And Mauricio ends his 7-fight winning streak, starts a new losing streak. He's now 4-1 in the UFC and stays at 15 in the rankings. So what's next? Well, I would make Mateusz Gamrot and BSD. I think he deserves to fight up in the rankings after taking on a young stud like that. And for Mauricio, how about a banger with Manuel Torres? Then in the main event, we had Nassourdine Imavov with a unanimous decision over Caio Borralho. And man, a few takeaways for me is that Nassourdine is obviously a legitly skilled striker that is continually improving, but he lives off his counter strikes and his hand speed. He was quick in that octagon. And for Borralho, I honestly was just surprised that early in the fight, he didn't look to string together chain takedown attempts, and he thought he could just stand and trade with Imavov. But after losing, multiple rounds from striking, you would think that he would change up the game plan. I expected him to be an aggressive wrestler, and of course he did have takedown attempts, but he would dip for like a double or try to go to a single and give up on it. He wouldn't string something in. He wasn't trying to really pressure forward to get Imavov up against the cage to open the takedowns. He actually never tried more than 2 takedowns in a round. And again, he didn't sell out on takedown attempts. He kind of just lackadaisically went for them. But Nassourdine the entire fight was controlling the space. He was pressuring Caio, and he was just too good in a dominant fight as he won all but maybe 1 round in the fight. A lot of people on that corner box when you're watching the UFC said it was a close fight. I did not think it was that, and neither did the judges. I believe that Nassourdine has done plenty enough to be next in line for a title shot. I'm not sure his takedown defense will be good enough against Khamzat. He's got those skinny little kickboxing legs, but he has really improved in the Brendan Allen and now Caio Borralho fight. Tough night for the fighting nerds. 2 of their best prodigies taking losses, but just show that they need to stick to their strengths, in my opinion. Statistically, Nassourdine landed 89 total strikes, 81 of them significant. Caio landed 89 total, 66 significant, while going 0 for 5 in takedown attempts. Now, Imavov extends his winning streak to 5 with a no contest. So he's 5-1-1 since 2023. He stays at number 2 in the rankings. And Caio ends his 16-fight winning streak. He moves to 4-1 since 2023 and drops 1 spot in the rankings to number 8. So what's next? Well, give me Nassourdine and Khamzat for the title, while Caio can rebound and take on former champion Robert Whittaker. But this Saturday, UFC Noche, the prelims at 12 p.m. Pacific, the main card at 3 p.m. Pacific on ESPN+. To preview this card, we finally get the one of 2 Ultimate Fighter finales that got moved, and Daniil Danchenko and Rodrigo Cenzinato. It is a pretty shallow non-pay-per-view UFC Noche. There are 5 fights worth watching, but the main event and the Tatiana Suarez Amanda Lemos showdown are the big fights. I always love me some Rob Font, and then the short notice Alexander Hernandez Diego Ferreira fight is a doozy. I expect San Antonio to be wild, but again, it's Noche. I feel like there's a lack of Mexican representation and just a lack of bangers. For that reason, I am previewing this a 5 out of 10. But there are some good fights we will not break down. Again, we have the Ultimate Fighter finale, Rodrigo Cenzinato and Daniil Danchenko. I'm taking Daniil Danchenko in that fight. We have Alessandro Costa taking on Fury FC alum Alden Correa in his UFC debut. I'm taking Costa there. We have Zachary Reese and Cedricus Dumas finally squaring up. I'm taking Zachary Reese. We have Jose Medina taking on Contender Series alum Dusko Todorovic. I hate picking someone in this fight, but I'll take Dusko. We got Kwang Lee taking on Tough Enough alum Santiago Luna. And then we have Contender Series alums Jesus Aguilar and Luis Urelli. I'm taking Luis. And then Claudio Puelles and Joaquim Silva. I'll take Silva in that fight. So we will kick this off with 2 prelims. We got the big showdown. Tatiana Suarez, 34 years old with an 11-1 record and the number 2 next to her name, taking on Amandinha Lemos, 38 years old with a 15-4-1 record and the number 4 next to her name. Now, Tatiana, after a brutal 5 years due to injuries, had her chance at the title, but she really wasn't close against the current champion, Zhang Weilei. Amanda suffered a loss against Zhang as well, but hasn't fared well against grappling-heavy fighters, and Tatiana is going to strike her way into takedown attempts over and over and look to keep the fight on the octagon as much as possible. To credit to Amanda, against one of the best grapplers in all of women's MMA, she only let Virna Jandiroba get 1 takedown in 5 attempts, but that wasn't a 5-round fight, and it was all it took before she got armbarred by Virna. But breaking this fight down, Tatiana has a wrestling style. She has a black belt in BJJ. She wrestled for the USA Wrestling World Team. She won gold in the 2013 and 2015 World BJJ Championships. She's an Ultimate Fighter alum and champion. 2 of her last 3 fights have been Performance of the Night. She shows up, she shows out. She has the highest control time percentage in women's strawweight history at 56.6%. The highest significant strike accuracy percentage in the women's strawweight division history at 61.2%. The fewest strikes absorbed per minute in strawweight history at 1.67. And that obviously all stems from her grappling. When she's striking, she's landing because she's usually getting takedowns. And because she's offensive with takedowns, she's not taking strikes. She's on a 1-fight losing streak and is 2-1 since 2023, since she returned from injury. 5 of her 10 wins are via submission, and she does have a 3-inch leg reach advantage. Now, Amanda is a Jungle Fight alum and former champion with 2 successful title defenses. She has the most knockdowns landed per 15 minutes in UFC women's strawweight history at .91. She's on a 1-fight winning streak and is 2-2 since 2023. 8 of her 15 wins are via knockout. 2 of her 4 losses are via submission, which also play into Tatiana's favor. But man, Amanda has heavy hands, of course. She really lives off striking. I just think that Tatiana is like Khamzat Chimaev in the women's MMA, and she's going to steamroll Amanda to get a victory. Tatiana hasn't taken a lot of damage and only has been finished by Carla Esparza back in 2018. Lemos is getting pretty old at 38 years old, and I don't think she's going to be able to get Tatiana out there. She's very durable. For that reason, I'm taking Tatiana Suarez. We are putting her on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. We have Alexander the Great Ape Hernandez, 32 years old with a 17-8 record, taking on Diego Ferreira, 40 years old with a 19-6 record. Now, I'm happy these two are the matchups. These two are getting a matchup on short notice because Diego's fight with King Green didn't come to fruition a few weeks ago, and Alexander called his shot for UFC Noche, and he's getting it. Both men are in way different stages in their careers at 32 and 40, but Carlos is a savvy veteran who is good everywhere, and he's going to bring the fight to Alexander, who has looked great since moving up to lightweight full time. It's Carlos Diego Ferreira, by the way. But breaking it down, Alexander has a black belt in BJJ. He had the 2018 upset of the year against Benil Dariush. He's an RFA and LFA alum. He's on a 3-fight winning streak and is 4-2 since 2023, but he is 4-0 at lightweight. 7 of his 17 wins are via knockout. Now, Carlos has a BJJ style. He trains out of Fortis MMA. He has a 3rd-degree black belt in BJJ. He won silver in the 2009 No-Gi Worlds. 5 of his last 8 fights have been Performance of the Night or Fight of the Night. This guy's savage. He shows up, he shows out. He is on a 1-fight losing streak and is 2-1 since 2023. 7 of his 19 wins are via submission, and 3 of his 6 losses are via knockout. Now, I feel like Anthony Hernandez is hitting his peak form at 32 years old, but Carlos is so aggressive and talented, I'm not sure that Hernandez is going to be able to keep him off or defend takedowns unless he is more aggressive offensively himself. He hasn't put out a lot of volume, and I think he's going to have to change that in this fight. He can't stick with the same game plans like he did in the Chase Hooper fight. He needs to offensively wrestle himself, and he can't be uber patient looking to counter because Carlos is going to make this fight ugly and bring the fight. He's an absolute gamer. But I do think Alexander Hernandez finds a way, but I'm avoiding this on any parlays where possible. Moving on into the main card, we get Kelvin Gastelum, 33 years old with a 20-10-1 record, taking on Dustin Stoltzfus, 33 years old with a 16-7 record. Now this should be another doozy. You would expect some high-paced action. You know, Kelvin hasn't been very active since 2021, and since then has had pretty mixed results. I do feel and have been vocal that he should be sticking at the welterweight division, but he is continuing to choose not to make that weight and fight at middleweight. Dustin has also had an up and down few years, but he does have some quality wins and has faced very good veterans and young up-and-comers. But breaking it down, Kelvin has a southpaw stance. He has a black belt in BJJ. He has a JUCO wrestling background out of North Idaho College. He trains out of King's MMA. He's a Rage in the Cage Ultimate Fighter alum and Ultimate Fighter 17 champion. His fight with Israel Adesanya was entered into the Hall of Fame this year at UFC 236, and that fight also won the 2019 Fight of the Year. He was the 2014 Breakthrough Fighter of the Year. He's on a one-fight losing streak and is 2-2 since 2023. Now, Dustin has a purple belt in BJJ, a red belt in Tang Soo Do, a black belt in Luta Livre. 2 of his last 4 fights have been performance of the night. He's showing up. He's showing out. He's on a one-fight losing streak and is 2-2 since 2023. 6 of his 16 wins are via submission. And he has a 3.5-inch reach advantage and a 4-inch leg reach advantage. Now, both men are well-rounded, but I expect Dustin to be the pressure fighter and Kelvin having to stick and move to look to offensively grapple to mix things up. I do think Dustin will be quicker, but Gastelum typically has good cardio and pulls his opponents into deep waters to make things happen late in the fight. I do think that could happen here, but I do think he needs to be more offensive early so he doesn't drop the first 2 rounds and has to go for broke. But for the sake of picking, I am taking Kelvin Gastelum, but I'm avoiding this on any parlays where possible. Should be a fun one. But moving on, we have Jared Flash Gordon, 37 years old with a 21-7 record, taking on Rafa Gifted Garcia, 31 years old with a 17-4 record. Now, Rafa is entering his prime and getting a talented and durable veteran who feels like he should be fighting ranked opponents. And I do think Jared has a ton on the line here. He can't afford a loss if he wants to stay relevant in the absolutely stacked lightweight division, as he is 37 years old. But breaking it down, Jared trains out of Killcliff FC. He has a black belt in BJJ. He's a Cage Fury alum and former champion. He's on a one-fight winning streak and is 2-1-1 since 2023. 8 of his 21 wins are via knockout. 4 of his 7 losses are also via knockout. So to knock out or be knocked out. Now, Rafa has a blue belt in BJJ. He's on a one-fight winning streak and is 2-1 since 2023. And 8 of his 16 wins are via submission. Now, I really do expect Jared to be better as a striker and grappler. You know, Rafa at this point in his career, being younger and in his prime, should have the power advantage, but Jared is going to be the one who is controlling where this fight goes. Jared is looking to rack up wins as he's coming off a massive knockout victory against a very good Thiago Moises only 4 months ago, and I think he'll find a way to victory here, probably outstriking and just outdogging Rafa Garcia. For that reason, I'm taking Jared Gordon. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. A little bit of a short notice change here, but we got Rob Font, 38 years old with a 22-8 record and the number 9 next to his name, taking on David Black Spartan Martinez, 27 years old with a 12-1 record. Now, Rob was actually supposed to fight Raul Rosas Jr., but he withdrew due to injury. So now we're getting a young man coming off the Contender Series a year ago who is a powerful striker as well. I'm glad that Rob's staying on the card, but this really is a lose-lose fight for him. He has to win to keep the good vibes going, and a loss here would be detrimental to his career. but he is coming off very nice wins against young fighters in Gene Matsumoto and Kyler Phillips. Breaking it down, Rob has an orthodox stance. He's got a brown belt in BJJ. He's tied with Marlon Vera and Sean O'Malley for second most knockouts in UFC bantamweight history with 6. It'd be awesome if he could take the lead there. He's on a 2-fight winning streak and is 3-2 since 2023. 9 of his 22 wins are via knockout, and he does have a 4-inch reach advantage. Now, David is a Contender Series alum. He's on an 8-fight winning streak, 2-0 in the UFC, and 10 of his 12 wins are via knockout. Now, clearly David's a power striker. He has only fought to a decision once since 2021, and I do think that Rob's going to be able to take his aggression and turn it to his favor because he has great striking defense, boxing technique, and power himself. I'd be shocked if David was able to outbox Rob unless somehow David turns into a grappler, which I have not seen. For that reason, I'm taking Rob Font. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on to the Noche main event. Technically not Mexican, but a part of the Mexican community. He's turned into a UFC fighter in Mexico. We have Diego Lopez, 30 years old with a 26-7 record and the number 2 next to his name, taking on Gene Lord Silva, 28 years old with a 16-2 record and the number 10 next to his name. Now again, Diego has lived and trained in Mexico for about 10 years, but it's just a weird Noche headliner. They kind of just threw this together. I feel like Dana getting into boxing, focus on the Canelo card, plus this being a non-pay-per-view. But I do think Diego has fought the best in the division since he's come into the UFC. He is just now hitting his prime at 30 years old, and I expect him to turn into a true contender. Gene is on a fast rise like Lopez was, but this is definitely his stiffest test yet. Besides this, it would probably be Bryce Mitchell, and that's far off from the best in the division. I think Diego uses his length and picks Gene apart in this fight. But breaking it down, Diego has an orthodox stance. He trains at a Lobo gym. He has a black belt in BJJ. He had the 2024 Submission of the Year against Gavin Tucker and was the 2024 Breakout Fighter of the Year. He's a Contender Series and Fury FC alum. He's on a 1-fight losing streak and is 5-2 since 2023. 12 of his 26 wins are via submission, 10 via knockout, so 22 of his 26 wins via finish. And he has a 3.5-inch reach advantage and a 4.5-inch leg reach advantage. Now, Gene trains out of Fighting Nerds. All 3 of his last fights have been Performance of the Night or Fight of the Night. He shows up, he shows out. He's a Contender Series alum. He's on a 13-fight winning streak and is 6-0 in the UFC, and 12 of his 16 wins are via knockout. Now, Gene is clearly a savvy striker with serious power, but I think Diego is better everywhere. He has the size advantage, and I do expect him to control this fight. I think Gene's best chance is to turn the fight into a brawl, but Diego also does very well in those wild exchanges, as he has impressive hand speed as well. But Gene is going to need to look to attack the lead leg of Diego, potentially even take him down if he wants to find a path to victory. I think if he's just standing and kickboxing, I don't think he stands a chance. For that reason, I'm taking Diego Lopez. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. But yeah, lackluster Noche card, but there are some good fights. Can Rob Font get the bantamweight knockout record? Diego Lopez, Gene Silva, Jared Gordon with a lot on the line, a banger between Gastelum and Stoltzfus, Alexander Hernandez and Diego Ferreira, and a massive win in women's MMA with Amanda Lemos and Tatiana Suarez. But like I said, I'm previewing it a 5 out of 10. Should be a fun atmosphere. Maybe the fights can deliver over what we expect. But next week we get a week off, and then the UFC heads international again as they go back to Perth, Australia, a card that is loaded with Aussie talent. And then the headliner is an absolute banger. We get 3rd-ranked Carlos Olberg and 8th-ranked Dominic Reyes. Steelers looking good. Oklahoma with the win. Football's back. UFC action. Boxing action. You can't beat it. I'm your host, Shane Gillette. That's episode 115. See you next week.